I feel like this is the golden age of entrepreneurship.
I think so.
Anybody can go into business today.
Fear and lack of confidence in my ability to figure it out, almost cost me the opportunity. When you eat, sleep, and breathe something, you're going to win. If you're everything to everybody, you're probably not going to win.
The reason why I decided to go all in, I was like, I can never really give it the full focus energy I need unless I do it.
My passion was freedom. I wanted freedom, and this was the quickest path that I could see to get financial freedom.
What's going on? Scott DeVore here, aka Free. This is the Free Factor podcast where we talk entrepreneurship, leadership, mindset. This podcast is sponsored by DeVore Capital Group, multi-service construction, real estate, and development services. And the podcast itself is brought to you by DeVore Media. I got a special guest in the house, Brian McNally. What's going on, Brian? Thank you for coming through. Welcome to the show. How you been? Good to see you.
Life is good, man. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, man. I know we got connected through some similar interests, business development, personal development, valuetainment.
Yeah.
You're a valuetainment, definitely.
I've talked to Taylor. I respect Taylor. She calls me at 7:30 at night, grinding, trying to get me on the team. So I respect the hustle.
She's a beast, man.
Yeah.
She's a beast. And I want to really get into kind of like your experience as an entrepreneur. I know you had a really successful startup that had an exit, an acquisition. And I've been looking at you up recently, and I see you've been out there kind of sharing a lot of the insights that you've gone through as an entrepreneur and sharing kind of your life story and things like that. So want to get into all of those things, but let's kind of start where you grew up, Northeast Philly.
Yeah.
Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
I represent the Mid-Atlantic. I grew up in Maryland. And then over time, you eventually made your way down here to Florida.
Yeah.
What was that journey like?
I figured you get a tan like I tan, so you gotta come to Florida. Born and raised Northeast Philly, working class family. My dad's a longshoreman. My mom just did odd and end jobs, whatever she could get her hands on, kind of worked her way up. And so just kind of always had that blue collar mentality. And but my dad would never let me go to the waterfront with him. I would always say, hey, it's a good union job, get money. He's like, no, I want you to go to college. I want you to do more things like that. So I started to go down that path and explore that. But I got a little lost in my youth. I won't bore you with all that. But at the end of the day, I came to Florida for a little fun and sunshine in college, and then built a life here. Ended up staying.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up, like in the family? I know you're working class family, but where did the origin of the entrepreneurial spirit come from?
I don't even know if I would call it entrepreneurial spirit initially, right? It was just this, I was always raised that there's dignity in hard work, right? No matter what you're doing. So I think maybe what's really kind of spurred me on to kind of push beyond that was I used to be a janitor in high school. I would clean the local grade school next to my high school. And then so I just needed more money, right? I was looking for a bigger paycheck, honestly. It wasn't really necessarily chasing entrepreneurship. But even as a kid, I shoveled snow. Me and my brother used to collect cans and then return them to the recycling plant to get money that way. So anything we could, just get extra money because we didn't have a lot. So it was more just that, right? How do I just get more and just have a little bit more of the comfort that I don't have right now? When I was a janitor, though, in high school, I ended up getting a job at this really nice synagogue in the suburbs. And got to see what wealth really looked like, to be honest, for the first time. And I looked around and I'm watching these, bar mitzvahs that are hundreds of thousands of dollars people are spending on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's people out here with this kind of, like, I didn't even know people. To me, it wasn't real then, right? It was just TV, right? But it was the first time I got to spend time around really wealthy people. I'm like, all right, I got to figure this out. I was like 16, I think.
Yeah. So you transitioned to Florida. I off camera, I shared similar to my transition to Florida when I was in college. We're probably close to the same age. I'm 45. You're early 40s. We used to spring break from Maryland. It's cold, in March, whenever spring break season is. And we used spring break down to Daytona Beach and Lauderdale. And we loved it. Like, why don't we just move here? Why are we staying up in Maryland and, freezing to death? And we made a pact. There were 6 of us in my crew, and I was going to move down to Lauderdale when I graduated in 2001. 3 had already did. Like, these guys were all a year older than me. And I ended up not doing it because I got a really good job out of college. 9 years ago, I did make it down to Florida, but for different reasons. I was a 15-year corporate guy. Like I mentioned, 2001 is when I graduated. And I went on this trajectory over the 15 years. I worked for 4 different billion-dollar companies in multiple industries. I started off in construction, working for one of the largest companies in the world, Bechtel Corporation, 50 billion a year annual revenue. I was building power plants out of college in the kind of the finance operations side. Then I ventured into a construction management firm where I worked in DC, and then jumped into aviation and defense contracting for 7 years. And then my last corporate stint was I moved to Los Angeles, and I worked for a healthcare company called DaVita. And it's a dialysis company that was in the transition. When I worked there, they were transitioning into total healthcare. And that was a really big move that they were making, because they were the number one dialysis company in the world, and now they're trying to do total healthcare. And even though I wasn't really involved in that part of the company, but I kind of got a really good seat to see what it's like to be really good in a really deep niche, and then try to go broad. And they had a lot of troubles. Yeah. So I wasn't working in it, but I was fortunate enough to be exposed to a lot of other departments. I had a dual role. I was corporate finance, but then I also worked in construction and real estate, and we were building. So I had the Los Angeles market, and we're building about 4 or 5 de novos per year. And I got to put together the business case to justify, hey, why we needed to build a center in this part of LA, because we're going to get this type of patient growth, and if we bring these doctors in. And then I also managed the full P&L of the division. So it was like a $300 million P&L. And I got, really good experience from that, because previous to that, I was kind of really in this pigeonholed into project management. And, project management is a little bit different than, company operations. So I had all this exposure to so many different, like I've mentioned, industries and departments. And at that time in my life, I was just so burnt out working for corporate. I had done so many side hustles outside of my career that I decided to bet on myself, go all in. I quit my corporate job to start a consulting company. And when I did that, I told my wife that I'm quitting my job. I'm going into business for myself. She knew I was an entrepreneurial person, but we're also moving to Florida. So I made this career change and this geographical change at the same time in 2015. And when I did that, and I want to tie it into your, from what I've been, from what I heard you share recently on another podcast you're on, I did that without the plan of long-term thinking. My long-term thinking was I'm going to be successful, make a lot of money, but I wasn't thinking of an exit. I was thinking, okay, I got these really high paying skills. I can be a consultant. I can charge a really high rate. And I was really just thinking I was going to be a solopreneur for the foreseeable future. You, on the other hand, and I know we're jumping ahead a lot, but you started a company, Melio, is that the name, with a partner, and you went on this phenomenal run, from what I understand, 2015 to 2022, 7 years, 50 million, I believe, something in that ballpark.
In year 7, we did 52 million in annual revenue.
And,
no outside capital.
No outside capital, bootstrapped it. And you said, from another podcast, that from the beginning, you were already thinking about the exit. Yeah. What was your kind of exposure to business, startups, knowing that was so fundamental to kind of keep, they say begin with the end in mind. Like, you knew that day one. What was like the, what insight did you have?
A couple things. I was lucky enough. The first job I got out of college was just relationships. It was a guy who was doing a startup staffing company. So I was the second employee in at the time, a 3-person company. And we were in the basement of some bank. I was working 60 hours a week, making $29,000 a year, with the promise of, at the end of my second year, if I did everything he told me to do, I'd make $75,000. At the time, that was more money than I've ever seen. I'm like, what, I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll stay here all day. It doesn't matter to me. It's just phone calls, and I'll keep grinding, right? So, but in so doing, we ended up being very successful at that startup. We ended up not as big as our company, but in 3 years, we were like a $6 million company. We won the Philadelphia Fast 50, things like that. So I got to see right from the owner, like, what this looks like. And his intention was always to grow and sell a business, right? So my first job was in an organization where we were looking to grow and sell the business, and I was going to reap the benefits of that. So right day one, I'm like, okay, this is the way to go, right? And the idea of working for the rest of my life in a cube farm till I retire just to get my Medicare kick in or whatever is just, it's torture to me. It just doesn't seem like a life well lived. So That was some insights I had. And then when I eventually left that company, I found my way into healthcare. And I started looking at some of the companies in my space that had exits and how big they were, how fast they grew. And I said, okay, that's what gave me the targets to hit. I said, okay, we can do that. If they've done it, we can do that. We can model that success and that exit. And for me, it was like growing up poor. I mean, it was just, I'm of the opinion that it takes money to make money, right? I've kind of saw that. And for me, it was always like, I'm going to get my first exit, and that's going to be my launch pad to do something. Like, I don't love staffing. It wasn't a passion project. I hear people say, oh, do your passion, you'll love it. My passion was freedom. I wanted freedom, and this was the quickest path that I could see to get financial freedom.
Yeah. There's a Cody Sanchez quote that I love. She says, you don't want to be rich, you want to be free.
100%.
And that was me.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted.
I thought I was money motivated until I made some money. I was like, this doesn't motivate me at all. I like to win every day, and I want to live on my terms.
So you found some companies, you were looking at case studies, okay, other staffing companies, this is what they did, here's how they grew, this was their exit. Well, how long was that process? Were you studying it for years? Like, were you just, when you got done, like your main part of the day, your work, you're like just laying, watching videos, studying, like how did that come about?
Not as much. I would say this, I knew I was wanting to do something for a long time. And my wife is a saint. We both agreed that we were going to do what's necessary to put us in a position to be able to do that. So I think it's really important that people realize I didn't just wake up one day and say, or even for a little while and say, oh, I want to do this. I lived a lifestyle for years, well below my means. So I did my best to increase my income. So I was in sales, business development. I worked my ass off to make as much money as I could. So, but even when I was making really good money at the time, like 200 grand a year, I was driving a used Toyota Corolla with manual windows. While my friends who I was working with were driving BMWs. And I was living in a house much smaller than I needed to be in. All those things, less cable bills, everything, just stacking. So that when I knew I wanted to take this leap, it wasn't going to be a side hustle for me. I was going to jump in whenever, and I didn't even know what it was I was going to do yet. I just knew I wanted to do something. I had to do something if I wanted to live the life I wanted to live on my terms. So, but I would say tactically speaking, identifying those companies and when they sold and that kind of thing, maybe a year in advance with me and my partner just kind of talking. He and I went through a negotiation probably a year to figure out partnering and all that kind of stuff, where we got real, like from a business planning perspective, it's like, this is achievable. We can do this.
Yeah. Also so wise. So many people just, hey, let's go into business together without really, you took a year when you guys had the idea came together and really structured it out. So then when you did have the exit, it was probably pretty clean. I'm sure there wasn't a whole lot that, that wasn't a gray area that you had to figure out.
With him and I mean, I'm blessed. I mean, we just make music, man. Have you ever read the book Rocket Fuel?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's us to a T.
Gino Wickman.
Yeah. And, 8 years together in a highly intense situation, never had one argument, never anything. Because we were fully aligned on our mission. Our egos got checked at the door, and it was mission over the man all day, every day. We didn't care. We co-CEO'd the thing. Nobody really even knew who ran the company. It wasn't that clear.
Yeah.
We both did.
No.
That's what, if anyone asked, and people are like, well, how do you do that? There's no way that works. If you've got two people who can check their egos at the door and are just there for the team, you can certainly do it.
Yeah. There's always the exception. You know, obviously they say, a lot. I'm rereading the E-Myth right now, and they say, well, someone has to be the CEO, someone has to be the COO. But there's always the exception. Yeah. And it seems like you guys are so aligned, and that's just beautiful. Obviously it doesn't, I would say that you're more of a rare case of that being successful, but you guys did make it work, and it is possible. The other thing that you said that I think is also phenomenal, because it reminds me of myself, I did a bunch of side hustles and I wasn't getting the traction I want. I was making okay money, I have to, pay for a lot of other extracurricular activities, but it wasn't replacing, my growing professional career, corporate salary. And the reason why I decided to go all in, I was like, I can never really give it the full focus energy I need unless I do it. Yeah. And it was so scary because I knew what I was giving up. But man, I believed so much in myself that I could do it. And I saw so many other people do it too. I'm like, but then I also knew I was young enough. I was like mid-30s. If I failed miserably, I still got plenty of time to go back. And it probably would be a great story to tell a corporate person. Like, hey, well, I tried it. I mean, I wasn't planning on failing, but I just knew there were still options. It's not like my whole life, if it was nothing I ever, if it didn't turn out to what I wanted, like my whole life would be ruined forever.
Yeah, I mean, I almost let fear keep me from doing it, to be honest with you. My partner had taken the lead. He actually started the business 6 months. We were talking before he started it, and he's like, I can't wait anymore. I'm going. And I was up for like this VP job, this promotion I was trying to interview for. I'm like, well, if I can just get this skill, and then I'll have, all the things that people tell themselves to procrastinate, really, and really just fear. I was like, well, once I have this skill, then I'll be ready to start my own business. And he's like, I'm just going, I'm doing my thing. And so it wasn't much later. It was like 6 months. I'm like, I'm in, man, let's do this. But in a way, almost fear and lack of confidence in my ability to figure it out, almost cost me the opportunity.
I'm Scott DeVore with DeVore Capital. We are a multi-service construction, real estate, and development company. We do services from ground-up development to roofing services to real estate transactions. Reach out to us at 844-4DEVORE or at the website link below.
What were some of the things? Were you reading something? Did you have a mentor? Did you have a coach? What was the thing that helped you get over that fear to finally do it?
Yeah. Fear of regret. I just knew that if I don't, and I was like, to your point, I'm 35 at the time, and I'm like, I can do this, and if it doesn't go the way I want, okay, I'll just settle. I've got a lot of skills. I've learned how to bring value to the marketplace already as an individual contributor, right, for a company. So I know I'm marketable. I mean, prior to doing that, I really didn't interview much for jobs. It was just like, hey, are you available? Do you want to come over here? Right. Because I built a reputation as someone who could deliver value and add, to support an organization. So I wasn't fearful of coming back. I mean, I was a sole provider of my family. I had a small child at home. So yeah, I was a little hesitant, right, and fearful. But at the end of the day, we just had to get to that point where I said, you know what? My fear of regret is far greater than my fear of failure.
Man, that's my same mindset. I couldn't imagine being 80, looking back and saying, man, I wish I would have taken more chances. I wish I would have done it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have a supportive wife. My wife was actually not that she wasn't supportive. She would have been happy if I would have just been a corporate guy my whole life.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's not who you married. But we went through some tough times because it wasn't always, and we're still building. I mean, we still got so much more that we need to do. But was your wife supportive with the decision?
Yeah. So it's something we had talked about for a while. So oddly enough, when years before this, my wife, she played poker a lot, and she actually played online poker professionally for 2 years. So she quit her job as a pharmaceutical sales rep to play poker online. And when that conversation we had already had the conversation. Hey, I'm down. You chase your dream. You love this. You go do it. But understand there's going to come a day where I'm going to take this leap, and I need you to be equally supportive. And she signed on for that. So when the day came, there wasn't even a question. And plus she believes in me. I mean, even today, she's not as driven in the way I am. To your point, she's content just to have me in her life, and she don't care if we have money or not. It's kind of, as long as we have enough to enjoy life, like, she's good. She doesn't have that drive that I have, which is great, which is a great balance for me. I need someone to tether me back to the planet because I'm ready to go all the time, right? So we we do well together. But when that time came, it was like, let's do it. We prepared for this. We've got the money. We saved it. Like, go. I've got your back. Let's make it happen. So
nice. So Melio,
yeah,
staffing company, but was it other services? Like
mainly staffing. We did. We built a consulting and managed services, like outsourced solutions around it. But mainly the vast majority of what we did was staff augmentation.
Super competitive. Like, it's probably one of the, I don't know, I don't have any data, but I would think there's a lot of, if you had to take 100% of a pie, like what percentage of staffing companies that are new businesses that are created, I think it's probably one of the top ones. What made you believe in yourself that, okay, I'm going into this field where it's uber competitive. There's already established companies, staffing companies, you know the big names. Everyone knows the big names. And then there's also a lot of smaller niche ones. So did you approach it like, okay, we're going to be in this niche. It's going to make us this very unique and we'll have success? Or were you thinking, okay, we can take on an Aerotech. We could take on a big dog. What was your mindset?
Yeah. So one, I would say this. I've got a mindset of always learning and educating myself. And that ultimately, and I'll explain why it's really important, because my career leading up to this in healthcare, I had left jobs strategically where had I kept the short-term vision of, I just want to make some more money, I would have stayed in that job as a salesperson, right? But I took jobs in different environments to gain skills and experience. And I think that's an undervalued thing that people don't pay attention to. They're all thinking closest to the dollar, right here today. How can I get the boat and the new thing that I want? But because I had this long-term vision, I strategically left jobs probably early and left money on the table to gain skills and knowledge and experience. So I left a staffing company in healthcare space in the revenue cycle of hospitals. And this is why it's important. So I got to see how hospitals bill and pay and do coding and all that. Then from there, I left that job. I could have stayed there and done well, but I had an opportunity to jump into a consulting firm, which was like a little higher level. I basically traveled around the country for a year with a former hospital and insurance company executive. And I just got to learn how executives talk and how they think and sit in these rooms and just soak up this information, right? And got to see healthcare even more broadly, holistically from the insurance side as well. Then left that job and went to a company that did business process outsourcing within that space. So again, more skill acquisition. So now I've got this whole picture where I know how to come into an organization, assess what they have going on, provide insights for them to implement and change and improve, how to provide interim staffing support, but also how to outsource this for them and improve their performance. So we took all that. I invested in Healthcare Financial Management Association, which is and I got my certified revenue cycle representative certification. I just invested myself in knowledge and being knowledgeable. And it's super important because all that gave me insight in just reading trade publications and things like that as to trending opportunities within the space. And so what we decided to do is we were hyper niche. I mean, to say we were niche is an understatement, right? So you would say healthcare is a niche. And then you would say revenue cycle is a niche. Well, within the revenue cycle, we even had a smaller niche where we only supported case management, clinical documentation improvement, and utilization management. But what's cool about it is it's this critical intersection where the business of the clinical side of the hospital meets the business and reimbursement happens. And it impacts how much patients have to get reimbursed and where they get discharged to from a safety perspective. So what we were able to do is through that knowledge acquisition, I was able to tie our services to the value we brought to the organization, so the savings we could provide them. Therein lies how we were able to have the confidence to compete against staffing companies. Because staffing's a commodity, right? As far as human resources are concerned, you're all the same. There's not even a difference. You're just a bunch of people who do the same thing, fishing in the same pond. It's not very true, but that's the view. And so what we were able to do by leveraging knowledge and experience, we were able to then go to these organizations and demonstrate the value we had. That like, no, these aren't just getting you people. This is going to improve your net patient revenue. This is going to have this impact to your organization. And that's why working with a specialist like us will bring you value. Yeah, and that's how we won.
Yeah, that's
and so
awesome.
We raced out ahead in a burgeoning market and we planted our flag and said, this is all we're going to do.
Was it hard to say no when someone said, man, you guys are so good at this. Can you find me an IT guy? Can you find me, a nurse?
Early on, it was really hard. I mean, there's times in the beginning when you're grinding, you've got businesses there. I mean, I think our first year we did $375,000 in revenue. And then, but staffing's just 13-week cycles. So it's a constant treadmill. And so you're looking ahead and you don't see it. And there's an IT job over here and that kind of thing. And our ability to say no to certain things in the end was crucial to our success, because over time, staying hyper-focused and becoming the best at what we did, we created a brand. People knew who we were. They valued us. They trusted us. I mean, I would get calls randomly. Like, I heard you're the guy that does this.
Yeah.
Someone at some other hospital told me you're the guy to call for this thing. It took a couple of years of just grinding and just living that. But when you eat, sleep, and breathe something, you're going to win. And I think that's some of that with the side hustle kind of thing, right? You only, if you're everything to everybody, you're probably not going to win.
Are you super focused like in your personal outside of work with like routines, health, diet?
Yeah.
Because it seems like, to be that way with your company, I would think you probably are more structured in your personal, like, hey, I wake up at this time, I do these activities, I take this multivitamin at this time and all that. Is that kind of you? Or
for the most part? Yeah, for the most part. I wasn't always like that. Earlier on in my career, believe it or not, I mean, I was heavy, no muscle, no exercise.
That's hard to believe.
Well, I just was so focused on trying to make money and not even thinking about my life holistically, right? It was just, I sat sedentary in a chair for 12 hours a day and, Then later in life, I started to kind of pull that together. And then actually in 2020, we lost 50% of our business in 6 weeks, which is miserable because we were supporting hospitals and they didn't need people. And it was pretty miserable because that was the year we had targeted. We were on track to do 20 million in year 5, which was the plan. Like we were going to achieve the goal and probably go to market. And I fell back into some old habits, just drinking, eating poorly, stopped exercising as much and all that kind of stuff. And I read David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. And I was just like, all right, man, you got to man up. It's time. Like, what are you doing? You know, this is not who you are. You're going to man up. You're going to figure this out. You're going to dig deeper and go harder. So I'd already gotten up early and exercised, but just very kind of like basic stuff. I started getting up at 4 a.m. then. And I still get up at 4 a.m. I retired a couple months ago. I get up at 4 a.m. People are like, why? You have nowhere to... I find things. I find places to be because I train now every day. I start doing mixed martial arts. So I'm up at 4. I run before my training at 6, and then I do jiu-jitsu at 6 a.m. most days of the week. And then, typically I'll do another like hour of weight training or some sort of circuit training with a trainer later in the day.
Have you done any martial arts previously?
Never.
That's amazing.
Never wrestling, never anything.
So you just jumped in, and if I believe if I'm recalling right, you're planning to do a match.
I am now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's my plan. Hopefully in late September, I'll do an amateur MMA fight.
That's crazy. Like what made you, I mean, it's one thing to train.
Yeah.
It's one thing like, okay, instead of just going to the gym and, doing some, running on the treadmill.
Yeah.
I'm getting MMA and just train with these guys. But now you're like, okay, I'm going to do an amateur match.
Right.
What drove you to that?
I am Will with DCRE, DeVore Capital Real Estate. We want to help you with your buying and selling real estate transactions. We know in the economy and the market that we have today, everybody is telling you that it is impossible to buy or to sell. We know that we can get the deal done. Give us a call at 844-4DeVore or hit the link below. Have a great day.
Well, first I'll say the training struck me was amazing when I realized how futile I was. And I thought I was a pretty tough guy until I went in there and was just like, treat it like a baby, right? I mean, it's the most humbling experience to realize that there's trained killers out there and that they could, pacify you at any moment, right? And so that was interesting to me. And I'm like, okay, but it was great. I'm running this company. I got people talking, like I'm the boss there, but in jiu-jitsu, I'm just the white belt getting choked out every day, right? So super humbling, and I needed that. I felt it was, for me, that was refreshing, right? It put me in the right headspace to go and then do work and to have empathy for employees and things like that, right? And to check my ego. But like most things with me, it's like, okay, how far can I take this? How good can I be at this? I'm trying to live my life in a way that I want to be the best possible version of myself in all ways, right? They say hell is when you get to the end of your life and you see the person you could have been. Mm-hmm. I want to avoid that. I don't want to live with that regret, right? And so it's like, and the other thing is to do a fight, it's like the ultimate display of discipline. I mean, what I eat, how I wake up, how I train, all these things, it's all encompassing, and it has to be in order to be successful at it. And I just want to be able to see what peak performance looks like at least once in my life. I'm 42. I don't have many more years to get it done. So it was like, all right, I've never trained like a professional athlete ever in my life. Like I've never really pushed that hard, and I want to see what I'm made of.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm thinking about, I did something similar.
Yeah.
This is 15 years ago. I was just in my very early 30s, and I grew up poor, grew up in the projects, and I used to fight all the time. So I thought I had decent hands, and I'm not a big guy. I'm only 5'9", and I weigh a lot more. I mean, I don't weigh a lot more. I weighed like 170 now, but back then it's probably like 145 or whatever. But I had my brother. He's a lot bigger than me. We had different dads. So he's 6'2". I'm 5'9". I mean, he's a big 6'2", like real thick. And so my whole childhood, I'm like, me and him were fighting, wrestling. So, I was tough from that. And all my friends, I played basketball. All my friends are giants. Mm-hmm. So I've always just been having to handle myself around much bigger guys. And growing up in projects, like I said, getting into fights, I'm usually the one who's like, in the middle. I'm in the mix up. So I knew I was pretty good. But as I got older, my life changed and, got away from the fighting, got mature and everything like that. So I'm in my 30s now. We just started having kids, me and my wife, and I'm like, you know what? I've always wanted to go to a real professional boxing gym and learn how to box. And there's not a lot of boxing gyms around, but there's a lot of MMA and boxing gyms. So I found one, and I go in there, and they do boxing 1 day a week. They train boxing 1 day a week. The rest, all 6 other days, is MMA stuff. And I didn't really want to do the MMA stuff. So I go in there, and the guy, and I look pretty young still, but back then I looked really young. They probably thought I was like a teenager, and I'm like 30 now. So I'm like, I just want to train. I don't want to fight or anything like that. Because he's like, are you trying to go pro? Like, what are you trying to do? Nah, I just want to work out with the guys. I just want to like really learn how to box because I didn't have fundamentals. So the first day I go there, I didn't know I was going to actually participate in the boxing class. But like, all right, I'll just jump in and just box with the guys. So they teach me how to how to jab, get my feet, my footwork and everything. I'm like, okay, cool. Like going through all the drills. I'm like, oh man, I didn't understand, how to turn and everything. So at the end, I thought we're done. And they're like, okay, we're going to go now sparring. I'm like, oh, we're sparring now? I'm thinking I'm sitting out. I don't even have my own gloves. I don't have a mouthpiece. I don't have nothing. So everyone's getting ready to spar. And they're throwing like Vaseline and stuff on people's faces and on their gloves and everything. And I'm thinking I'm just going to watch the sparring. And Coach Dokes was like, no, you're going to spar too. I'm like, dude, I don't even have a mouthpiece. Like, what do you want me to do? He's like, oh, no, you're good. So he grabs like paper towels, a wad of, gets it wet, shoves it in my mouth, make a makeshift mouth guard, and then they start sizing people up. So like, okay, they have it. So it's a pretty wide range of skill level in this class. They have, and it wasn't a big class. This is like in rural Western Maryland, is where I was living at the time. So they put the pros against the pros, and they put the people who were, decent against each other. And then it was me left and a woman. So this woman comes in, and I remember at the beginning of the class, there was a news crew there, and they were interviewing this woman because she was an ER doctor, and she was going to fight her first fight as an amateur to raise money.
Right.
And they made me her sparring partner. I'm like, oh my goodness, are you serious? I got to like spar against a woman? And this is my first day of class. I didn't know I was getting into any of this. And we're, everyone else is sparring. We're like last. And I'm in the ring with her. I just learned how to properly throw a jab. And I don't want to throw a punch at a woman.
Right.
And she wasn't like great, but she was training
training
for a little bit. And they're calling out all of these things to her. It's like, he's like, just feint, and he's gonna like drop his guard, and then you can like come in with a cross. And he's not really hurting me, but she's getting some punches in because I don't want to punch her.
Right.
And I don't know. I didn't teach defense yet.
Right.
They didn't teach me any of the slips. But man, that was my first day boxing. And I tell you what, man, I loved it. I stuck there for like. For the next year and a half. I ended up moving to LA, so then I dropped the class. But I learned so much, from that class, and I thought I got pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't really do much against the pros, but I felt like I always dominated anyone who wasn't really trying to go pro, but but had experience. I thought I definitely outnumbered them. So I've been looking for boxing here in Jacksonville, and there's a couple close to downtown, but I live so far away from downtown that the only thing I can do boxing wise, I've been doing it for a couple of years now, is like fitness boxing.
Yeah. And
it's definitely not boxing, but at least you're doing,
it's fun.
At least you're hitting the bags, and it's great exercise.
Yeah.
But I miss sparring so much just because, man, when someone's actually throwing a punch at you, it's different when you're just hitting a bag, right? When someone's throwing punches and you got to slip them and everything and just know how to counter.
Mitts is always fun. You feel like an all-star. Then you go in the spar and you get cracked a couple of times. It changes you. So that's an area of my game. I'm more jiu-jitsu, right? So I've been learning the striking and more recently been sparring with people who are better and better and starting to feel like what that's like. It's just, I feel like I'm in slow motion against some of these guys, right? So, but it's all part of it. I got to just keep growing.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, you might like this. There's a boxing gym in my old neighborhood called Jack Costello Boxing Club. It's a charitable organization where they get kids off. It's like an after-school program. They get kids off the street, bring them into the boxing gym and stuff. So I go up there, talk to those kids, and support that charity. And during my fight, I'm going to try and raise money for a charitable fund that I have, and that's one of the organizations I'm going to support.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's awesome. I want to jump back into your startup. The other unique thing is you basically had a kind of a profit participation plan, some type of equity or equity-like plan that you offered to your team. Would you say that was extremely instrumental in the growth that you guys eventually had, like from when you started?
I think so. It's a component. It's an important component of the overall thing. Because again, money's only going to motivate people so much. But what I think is really important, because even in that plan, it's ambiguous the whole time. Like, because the company's doesn't have a value yet. So people would always ask, like, well, how much is this worth? I'm like, I don't know until we sell the place. Like, I really can't give you an answer. Nobody's going to know until we have it valued. I think all told, we gave away about 5% of the company, of the sale, to team members. And, but what it does is helps everyone aligned on the same mission, which I think is super important. And so I think aligning compensation within an organization is an often overlooked thing. I think people oftentimes just try and, I don't know, it's like the way we've always done it sort of thing. And I'm a fan of overpaying your people and for variable compensation, right? Meaning pay for performance.
Right.
So pay for performance, align that with the goals of the business, and it's huge, right? Because now people are bought in. The other key thing we did was empowerment. We enabled our team to make decisions at the desk level, but also be contributors in how we designed our services. And, we spent a lot of our time just removing roadblocks for our team.
So the empowerment, was there a time, and so I'm sure it wasn't a problem for you, but sometimes you over empower and your expectation is they're going to, meet the desires that you had. But if you don't have measures in place to make sure they're fulfilling, like, whatever you said, where, some people become absentee way too fast and power. And then next thing you know, you're a year down the road, like, man, nothing is like functioning the way that we thought. Did you experience any of that, or were you really good at?
We were still really close to it. It was very collaborative with the team, so we weren't completely disengaged, but it was never us dictating what was going to happen, right? So if a decision was going to be made, and we collaborated with our team on, hey guys, this is, and just just being transparent with your team goes a long way too. People want to feel like they've got a peek behind the curtain. And so that sometimes the team would make a suggestion and say, I can't do it, and here's why. It's going to impact us over here, which you guys don't have line of sight to. I do. So ultimately, as the executive, I have line of sight to more than they do. But I want to understand where they're coming from within their desk level, within their aspect of the business, right? And then I'm going to aggregate all those different opinions from the various sections of the business, and I'm ultimately going to make the call. But I'm not going to just do it on my own without their input. And I think that's the really important part, because I didn't always say yes. But I said yes enough to when I said no, I didn't have an argument about it, and I didn't lose. People understood I had my reasons, and I would explain them and move on, right? But I think, just like raising a kid, sometimes if you just bark at them all day and tell them to do stuff, they're not going to do it, right? So, but if you can get them to be part of the solution, they're going to be excited about doing it. And it took me a while to come to that conclusion as a leader. I failed miserably early on. I was just a drill sergeant because I was so hyper focused on winning, and and it's just I would just grind people up if I needed to. It didn't matter, right? And then, people always say, my people are my best asset. Well, maybe you should actually treat them like they are. Yeah. And I think if you can find that approach as a leader, I think you'll see a lot of success.
Did you have an advisory board? Like who? Or
a little bit, not an official advisory board, but mentors. Like I said, the guy I did start it with, so I would tap him every once in a while. Jason had worked for guys who had done a startup and an exit as well. My business partner, Jason. So we tapped them for a little bit of strategic planning, but most of the time, we just invested in reading and learning, self-education, personal development, and trusted ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm Scott DeVore with DeVore Capital Contracting, multi-service licensed construction company. We are a certified roofing and general contractor. We do everything from residential to commercial roofing and all other construction services. If you are a homeowner or a commercial building owner and you have any roofing needs, from repairs to replacements to tarping, please reach out to us at 844-4DeVore or at the link below.
Man, your story. Oh my goodness. I would say it's making me envious. Like, I wish it was that smooth for me. It's like you started you knew you were thinking, began with the end in mind. You knew you wanted to exit. You put all these pieces together. You got a little hiccup with COVID, rebounded from that. It seemed like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And
we
then
ended up staying flat that year, which for us was a miserable thing, right? Because I think our numbers were like 375, 1.5 or 1.7, like 3.5 or, and then we took this big leap to like almost 11 million. And in 2019, and then 2020, we were on pace to do 20. And COVID happened. We ended up doing just about 11 million again, and then came all the way back to like 25 million, and then, pretty quickly to 52.
wow. When did the process start? Okay, we're going to exit. I know you wanted to do it in 5 years, but then COVID kind of messed all that up. When did that process start? I mean, I know it started from the beginning, but were you just already getting the calls, or were you putting things up? Were you working with a broker?
We did a couple of, I think, smart things. We kind of tested the waters a little bit with strategic buyers, just in our network. Hey, we build good relationships with our competitors. I know people think that's crazy. It's actually kind of smart. If you really spend some time, you're going to learn your competitors. At the end of the day, you're going to get more value from PE the bigger you are, right? So we had strategic conversations with competitors, like, hey, what if we joined, our combined entities looked like this, then we went to market together, right? So just exploring those conversations. We entertained some buyers early on, just played little possum, I guess you would say. They made us a ridiculous offer. We acted like we would actually consider it just so we could learn more about the process, like interviewing when you don't need a job kind of thing. And we learned a lot through that, right? What type of questions they're going to ask? What type of, what is the data they're going to request from us and all this kind of stuff. So that gave us a good foundation. I would say from a consulting perspective, we hired a financial consultant, like a part-time CFO and a financial, to get our books in order years in advance. I think it was year 3 we did that.
Nice.
And that was one of the smartest things we did, because it gave us, we had great data. We had very clean books, and when we went to market, like they were able to give us some insights as to, multiples and things like that we should be targeting. So yeah, from that perspective, we had that support. And I would say about almost 18 months to 2 years before we closed the deal, we were working on those kind of things.
Okay. So
talking to brokers and stuff.
Yeah. So 18 months, 2 years from the time, I mean, how many like real buyers, like when you're like, okay,
we never went to market.
You never, okay.
We ended up taking a strategic who was private equity backed, one of our competitors.
Oh.
We really liked the culture. We liked the leadership. We knew a lot of our team members, because it's kind of a small world what we did.
Yeah.
A lot of our team members had worked with a lot of their team members before. We knew the guy who ran their division that we were going to be merging with. We met the CEO. They had acquired our friend's company previously and had nothing but good things to say about it. So we just kind of made the connection, had the discussion, realized that, because it was really important for us. Obviously, we wanted to maximize our money best we can. But more importantly to us was that we did it the right way, and that we left our team in the position. We made a lot of promises to our team, and they ran through brick walls for us, and we weren't going to do it without them. And we've seen a lot of disasters with M&A where it's like they just gut the company. And the last thing we want to do is go through a miserable earnout and, spit in the face of all the people that supported us to get us there. We just weren't going to do it. As an organization, we had a saying, we do it right, do what's right, not what's common. Like, we lived our organization. Those were like core values for us, and we weren't going to just abandon them at the end for financial gain, right? So it was really important to get that cultural fit, and we found it, and we thought it would be a good transition for our team, good transition for us. And so that's how we did it. We just went direct.
Nice.
Yeah.
So after that agreement was made, 18, 24 months, where you fully completed your contractual obligation, and now you're out of it completely, and you said you're retired.
Yeah.
How was that? How was that
transition.
18 to 24 months? Like, what were you thinking during that time?
It was tough, because I woke up every day on fire to achieve this goal, right? Like, I had a North Star. I'm going to grow this business, and I'm going to exit. And like, that's all I thought. It's just, I knew what I had to do every day. After you sold, it was like, okay, I came back to work on Monday and it changed, right? Now I'm just like, I'm in a job again, right? And I have targets to hit, earn out, and all this kind of stuff, but it just wasn't quite the same, right? That fire wasn't there. But we did what we had to do. I mean, I made commitments. I'm a man of my word. I'm going to see it through to the end sort of thing. And we did. Then after that, it was like, that's when we knew it was time. Once we got through, there's an opportunity to stick around. We still have equity in the bigger organization. So, we're still there to help in an advisory capacity as needed. But it was like day to day. I was like, ultimately, I was chasing freedom. I'm ready. It's time. Let's pull the ripcord on this thing.
Were you already planning the next thing during that 2 years? Like, where
No,
were you
the
at
only thing
now?
I was planning was a fight.
Okay.
That's the only thing. I just wanted to train
keep you
full-time.
busy. Yeah.
That was it. I'm so pouring myself into that. The one thing I committed to was patience. Everyone said, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do? I don't know. I'm going to chill out. I'm going to spend more time with my family. I'm going to focus. I mean, there were sacrifices made by my family, my wife and children, and my friends and my mom and dad and things like that over those years where I said no to a lot of things. I like to say yes to more of that right now, right? And I want to be fully engaged as a parent. I wasn't always that when I was in the throw of business. Even though I was there physically, my kids would be talking to me and my brain's on, work or whatever it is. I'm like, okay, buddy. I'm like not really listening to them. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you just in the few months that I've been fully engaged with my kids and my wife, and I'm seeing a massive change in my household, right? And I thought I was pretty good before, but I think, there's always a way to be better. And I'm trying to be the best version of myself. And so really focusing on that right now, with a long-term vision to ultimately create a holding company where I'm going to acquire businesses, implement my style of culture and leadership and high growth. That's my future state plan.
So you're thinking more acquisition. You wouldn't do a startup again?
No, I don't, I'm not going to be running a startup again. Lesson learned. And I don't think I would need to do it the way we did it before. Right. I think there's plenty of businesses out there that just need good leadership and some creative thinking and, new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
That are already cash flowing, that are there. And I'd much rather do that, install CEOs and give people opportunities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm on my 5-year run.
Yeah.
I'm looking to take my DeVore Capital group of companies to 100 million by the end of the decade.
Nice.
We're 20 people within the staff, the full staffing right now. And unfortunately, I'm unlike you. I'm not hyper focused, hyper niched in anything. And I almost feel like it's relatable to your story where you guys were successful with 2 co-CEOs, where that's really kind of unconventional, but it worked. And I feel like, for me, we do construction, real estate, and development services. And I guess my mindset is get as much profit as you can through a whole life cycle. And I've been adding on services and licenses over the years, and I made multiple pivots at first, but I think I have the direction of where we're going, and our culture is the strongest it's ever been. But I could see once I get through this run, I know we're going to hit our goal of 100 million by the end of the decade. I probably wouldn't do a startup again. I think I'm going to be more like you, think of acquisitions. I love entrepreneurship, man.
Yeah,
It inspires me so much hearing your story, even the lowest level stories of entrepreneurship. It just fires me up so much. And
it's cool. I think, and I would love to see if you agree with this, like the impact we can have. I mean, I think about my team and what I always committed to them is I'm going to give you an environment to make life-changing money here, but you're going to have to do the work. All I'm going to do is give you the opportunity. And that's my commitment, is that I'm going to make sure that there's an opportunity here and an environment for you to do that. And I look back on some of the people, like we had one of our first employees, she says, I'm going to take this leap with you guys. She was a rock star, right? Like, how do we took out a small business loan to pay for her salary for the first year. We're like, we got to get her. She's the best at what she does. And it was the best decision we ever made. And what she told us, she's like, my son's really smart, and he's like this little tech genius. I want to pay for him to go to MIT or Georgia, like somewhere, really good school. And I want him to be able to do that through this job. And oddly enough, the timing had worked out that we had sold the business. We were able to cut her a check as he was going into college.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he just won a Georgia Tech accelerator project. He just got like I think it was $50,000 or $100,000 like grant that he won for his company that he started, and he's the first freshman team to ever do it.
Wow!
And it's just like, it just all delivers. And we had other people who started with us very young. in their lives were just getting married, and now they have kids, and it's like they're already set up for life, and it's amazing to see that. They're like, you've changed the direction of my life by giving me this opportunity, and they're the ones that did the work to capitalize on it. But I mean, there's nothing more fulfilling than that, and that's the reason I'm never going to stop. Right? I would love to go into organizations where maybe they're struggling a little bit, but they're decent, they've got a spot, and showing them a path to engage everybody and let everybody win and change some lives. I mean, if I can wake up more people to this and give more people the freedom that I have now so that they can be better citizens and better fathers and wives and all that, I mean, then I'm living a life well lived, and I'll be happy.
No, absolutely, man. Impact is so vital to this whole journey. When you're a W-2 employee, you're basically contributing to the tax system. But when you're an entrepreneur, you're contributing to stimulate the economy. And we definitely, I feel like entrepreneurship is the American dream. This is why this country was successful, because we got the opportunity to create businesses, to build legacies. And it's just, I feel like I don't know if there's ever been an age before that was called the golden age of entrepreneurship. If there hasn't been, I feel like this is the golden age of entrepreneurship. I
think so.
Anybody can go into business today. And I just, we're close to the same age. And I just remember when I was growing up as a kid and, thinking about college, that was like the only option. No one ever said to start a business. It was like, go to college, especially growing up in the projects. I knew that was better than, any other option I had, presented to me. So that's what I did. But then when I got out of college and then I started to get into my professional career, slowly entrepreneurship started becoming a thing. But man, just to where it is 20 years later, how it's like it's glorified. Now I know there's different levels of entrepreneurship where you got the solopreneurs and then you got the people like you who actually put it on the line. You had staffing, you had everything that a traditional business has, but then there's everything in between. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it, and definitely making that impact.
We hope you're enjoying the content. We want to encourage you to jump over to the Will podcast, where our mission there is to inspire you with wisdom, inspiration, leadership, and goals for effective legacy. Both of these podcasts are brought to you by DeVore Media. Be blessed.
I think information's at your fingertips right now. Right? I mean, I think one advisor I didn't acknowledge was Google. And my Audible account. I mean, if you think about it, gosh, so many times we ran into a situation where you couldn't do that before. And that's probably why this is the golden age of entrepreneurship, because it's all about problem solving. I mean, that's literally all you're doing all day. Talk to people, people come up with these really detailed plans and this is what it's going to be. And I'm like, good luck. I've got a plaque in my house. I got a painting that my brother made and that's wrapped around an autographed Mike Tyson glove. And it says, everyone's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth, right?
True.
So that's hanging over behind my desk. And that's the reality of it. So today, you have more information and resources to solve any problem that comes your way without having to spend $1 million on consultants. And you can just Google it. Yeah. You can get a dissertation on it. You can get a masterclass on it. And we did that time and time again.
Yeah. Same way. My wife, she makes fun of me all the time because I'm always going to YouTube. Yeah. Anything. All the information is there. I'm not very handy. But I built a whole garage rack system based on a YouTube video, just step by step, man, and I made it happen. There's always information. Whatever you need, it's there. Yeah. I've already shared our common interests with Valuetainment and Patrick Bet-David and those guys. I know you mentioned the book Buy Back Your Time. I got it on my bookshelf right there. Yeah, that book has changed my life.
Yeah.
And
I'm excited to implement some of what I've been reading there.
Yeah. What other books or influencers or thought leaders, mentors out there, like your go-to, who you're listening to or reading?
Man, I've been liking Alex Hormozi stuff. I've seen him recently. I just kind of found that. I didn't know that he existed really until recently, but I've been enjoying that. Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership, for me, fundamentally changed how I led my company, but also how I led with my family. I implemented a lot of those things. At the end of the day, what was so powerful about that for me was the recognition that it starts and ends with me. There's no problem that can't be solved by me looking inward and doing the work and figuring out how to fix it, right? You can blame other people all the time. There's always a way to do that, right? You talked a little bit earlier, like, well, how do you know when your team isn't doing what they're supposed to, that kind of thing. Well, if that was the case, then I didn't set proper expectations, right? So, and Dan Martell talks about that too, right? Like, this is what it looks like when it's done the right way, right? And so if they don't have that answer, then that's on me. Just the concept of that has been really powerful for me. There's a guy, Bedros Keuilian.
Not familiar.
Yeah, he's new. So the shirt I'm wearing is The Few. It's Few Will Hunt. It's a company. He's an investor in it. I'm an investor in it too. He wrote a book called Man Up. I really like his style. I mean, he's a lot like me in those ways where it's just like, I mean, I think a little bit our world's getting a little soft, right? I mean, I don't, I'm a traditional manly guy, I guess you would say. And I think that's something that we need in this world still. And he talks a lot about, correcting that.
No doubt. What's the future? Any last parting words?
Yeah.
Wrap up.
Man, future is to be determined. But in PBD's words, it does look bright, right? So I've got plans.
Bright.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue to do this and put myself out there a little bit more, which is new for me, right? That's one of the reasons I know I need to do it because it makes me incredibly uncomfortable. So I was like, all right, well, then I'm gonna lean in. That's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, the plan is to get through, hopefully do the fight at the end of September. So right now that's priority number one, get that done. And then next year start to really work on what the plan looks like to potentially, I would probably want to acquire maybe one business late next year if I can, just to get the ball rolling on that. And then other than that, I'm coaching baseball and soccer for my son's team and being a cheer dad for my daughter and, taking my wife on vacations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How can people reach you on the interwebs?
Yeah. Instagram, McNally_B. LinkedIn, Brian McNally. And then BrianMcNally.com is in the process of being developed a little further. But yeah, so I'll be doing some coaching and consulting. I'm working on building out what those programs look like and things like that. So
you'll be phenomenal at it.
Yeah.
Phenomenal at it. Brian McNally, I appreciate you coming through to the Free Factor podcast. Make sure you tune in for more episodes. Like, subscribe, share, bell button, all that good stuff. Until next time, peace out.
Real interviews, real guests, no actors. Real talk, get prepared for Free Factor.